I'm gonna start with you, Trevor. What do you think the world would have been like, or maybe you guys asked that question to when you were doing the behind the scenes interviews? I wonder because it's such a monumental part of history and society.
I think that what the public was really ready for was this change in television.
This was an experiment.
Tag, you're it.
No one had ever seen anything like it.
I wanted to capture the family aura.
Hi, Bert.
Ernie?
But I don't think any of us sat there thinking, oh my God, we're changing the world.
Looking at our sheet, Jim, we're like, what is this one? Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. So glad you guys had the time to talk to me today. I'm sure there's a lot of interviews going on, but wow, I don't even know where to start. I guess I'll start. How did you guys get to Sesame Street, Marilyn? I'll start with you.
Trevor and I have known each other for 20 years, and he lives in LA. I live in New York. I was lucky enough to be asked to direct a little music video for Sesame Street, the show, with Ernie. And I posted a picture of myself and Ernie on Facebook, and Trevor saw it, and he had optioned Michael Davis's book, and he was looking for a director for the documentary. And there I was with Ernie. And so it was one of those beautiful things, the stars aligned.
One of those moments where you're like, I'm scrolling and I'm like, who am I? I'm not even consciously thinking I'm looking through Facebook for a director, but it was just one of those perfect little star lines, so, or maybe moon aligns, right, Marilyn?
Maybe moon. Yes. Very good, Trevor.
Well, this is kind of parallel how the show got started too, right? I mean, the pieces that had to fall in place, that's kind of amazed me really watching this, how everything lined up and the right people lined up. I was wondering one thing, if you guys maybe talked offset or thought about this question, what the world would have looked like now had this show never been created, had those pieces not come together. I'm gonna start with you, Trevor. What do you think the world would have been like, or maybe you guys asked that question to when you were doing the behind the scenes interviews? I wonder because it's such a monumental part of history and society.
I think that what the public was really ready for was this change in television, and eventually it would have come, but I think that it would have been little tiny moments that never really made the kind of an impact that we saw from Sesame Street and that we continue to see today. I think kids would probably be a lot worse off because a lot more candy and products would be sold, and that was really all that was happening during that time in television. There were some shows that were trying to sort of steer away from that, but it was really Sesame that took the mantle on to change things and to find that moment where education could be used with this new medium of television. I don't know if I'd want to live in the world without the Sesame Street, because it would be pretty terrible, I think.
Marilyn, what about your thoughts on a world without Sesame Street?
Well, the other thing, I agree with everything Trevor just said, but additionally, I feel like they brought such a sophistication to the language that was being spoken. The writing was so, the humor was so sharp. They were targeting adults, and they were making social commentary and satire and these kinds of things. So I think they really elevated the game. And it might have taken children's television or children's entertainment in general another decade to even approach the kind of realism, authenticity, and truth and sophistication that Sesame Street achieved. And I think that is huge.
And it's so hard to even think about that because, from the minute it started, it caught on around the world.
Yeah.
The show started and immediately there was co-productions in Mexico and Germany. And then it just continued to grow and grow. So it really was this incredible, connection of these people that shared a common purpose and intention. And, it was lightning in a bottle.
Mm-hmm. Ellen, I'm going to stay with you for a second. You know, when Trevor mentioned about starting this up, did you think like, well, you're the same guy that did the Charles Manson the documentary too, and then we're gonna jump different genres like that? Was that ever a conversation or a thought?
I love that question. That's amazing. You know, no, because I will tell you, part of our motto with our company is building worlds, right? That's our log line. And so we're very interested in world building and people who build worlds. And, we've this whole idea, when he read Michael Davis's book, Street Gang, How It Got to Sesame Street, he's like, I think this could be a really good documentary. And then I got the book, and Sesame is obviously a huge part of our lives. We grew up with it. And when I read the book though, I was like, oh, okay, there's so much here that I didn't know. And I thought there's so much here that audiences for a film wouldn't have known, that this was, this experimental endeavor of doing so many things that had never been done before, coming out of the civil rights movement, this idea of teaching children, getting them ready for school, but also making sure that children of color were getting access that they weren't getting due to poverty and racism to education. And so I immediately saw why he was drawn to it, and I was on board, and very much so. So yes, it was not too surprising, but that's the fun in entertainment. You get to pick a lot of different projects.
Totally. I love that. You created such a good children's documentary, but if they look at your resume, you created other interesting
There's
stuff.
some other weird stuff on there. That's
Yeah.
Time travel movies and
Totally
punk comic books, and it's a pretty wide range.
Also a children's graphic novel.
And a children's graphic novel, yeah.
Do it all, that's what it said. Marilyn, this show was so ahead of time. That's my biggest takeaway from it. I feel like they were almost too ahead of time, that only this select group of people saw this sort of vision that maybe the world didn't at the time. I think had they started this today, it would have been more of a commonplace. I think they wouldn't be such oddballs in a sense. But tell me, just in a sense, them being ahead of time, did they change, in a sense, the world that we see it, or they weren't maybe allowed to do certain things because the show started? It's been over 50 years since they got it done. I'm just wondering, had it been started today, how different would it be versus then, and how bold it was?
Well, the fact that it happened in 1969 was hugely a bold entry into the world of television, much less children's television. I mean, they addressed everything that was happening in the world around them. They spoke about, they showed races mixing. They talked about so many things. If Sesame Street were to launch today, I mean, who knows? It would be interesting to know where they would land on things. But I really think that having come out when they did allowed them to make such a huge splash, because nobody was speaking to children the way they were, with such respect and such care. The music that they were playing on that show, the guests they were bringing on, movie stars, sports heroes, heads of state, the biggest names in music, everyone was banging on the door to be on this show, because this show was breaking every barrier known in television. And it's just kind of mind-blowing. One of the things that blew my mind the most in reading Michael Davis's book, and in just thinking about this project in general, was that this all came through the lens of a show for 3 and 4-year-olds. I mean, the level of entertainment, the quality and the caliber of what was being said and what was being produced was amazing. They were totally going after an adult audience, because they knew that children would learn more if they were watching it with their parents. So it was a variety show, as Joe Raposo so rightly calls it. It was a variety show, and it was on a par with Johnny Carson or any other variety show that was happening at that time. I mean, today there's a lot of shows for children, a lot of shows on cable and on streaming and all these other platforms. At that time, Sesame Street was a singular mark. And I think thank God it debuted when it did, because it really made the splash that allows it to be this international force today.
Sorry to interrupt. I just want to say we have time for one more question.
Okay. I'll go with you. I guess I'll throw this to kind of everyone. I was curious, what about when you guys did the interviews with the former cast members and kind of the originals, what did they say about the current Sesame Street, the current generation of it and the future of it? Where did they see their sort of creation, where it is right now and where it's potentially going in the future?
I think that, we didn't talk so much about the current show in our interviews, but what Chris Surf says in the film, we didn't know that we were going to change the world, and I think that everybody who was aligned with this show is so incredibly proud of this time that they were a part of it. People, the longevity of people on this show, from cast to crew to educators, researchers, is long. People are there for multiple decades, and they have
30 years.
There's an alumni network where people stay in touch with each other. So their connection to the show and being aligned around this intentional, mission-driven television is something that they are very proud of and continue to be proud of to this day.
I think that's well said. And in that case, before I leave, I have two ideas for documentaries. Something I grew up with: Pee Wee Herman and Barney, probably. I guess if we could pull that off. We did Mr. Rogers, we got Sesame Street. Now I guess Pee Wee Herman. Trevor, this one might be up your alley. There's a story there with Paul Rubens. So
I don't know if I can stand on the Barney step with you, but we could maybe get into the Pee Wee Herman of it all.
I would explore that. I'd love to see that. I think Marilyn, you got to direct it too. So
Okay.
Thank you guys so much. Really enjoyed it. A terrific documentary, and it just brought up a lot of great memories, I think, for everyone. So thank you so much. And I hope you do these great projects and maybe take my idea.
Thanks, Jim.
Thanks, Jim. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.